Hello and welcome to this free video series where we're going to be answering some of the most commonly asked questions that we get from folks who are working to quit their job and start a business. You know, Heather and I try really hard to keep a very vigorous dialogue open with the folks who are listening to the podcast, reading the book, with our clients, with the folks in the Shift program. We really want to know what you're thinking. What are you worried about? What are you concerned about? What is stopping you from quitting your job and starting a business? Because that's what we're about. If people with jobs are over here and people with successful jobs are over here, or with successful businesses are over here, our focus is in this middle part and getting you from here to here. So that's why we always are asking you questions. You hear our emails, you see it on Facebook and on Twitter. You see us always asking you questions about what issues you're having, what is stopping you from going from here to here. And that's what we're going to address in this video series. Now, we're going to start today with the biggest thing that stops people from quitting their job and starting a business, and that is fear. F-E-A-R, that four-letter F word that is just so overwhelming when you're used to this phenomenon where every 2 weeks or so, a bunch of money drops into your bank account, and then you use that money to pay your bills, to pay your electric bill, to pay your car note, to pay your mortgage, to pay all of the things that you have to pay to keep your life going. And the idea of that no longer being there is really scary. And I want to talk about kind of some of the things that we've discovered are helpful for folks to get past that fear and to really be able to look at business in a whole new way that makes you excited and more comfortable and less fearful. Now, first of all, let me just say, you're never going to get over all of the fear. There's always going to be some fear there. And in fact, if there's not any fear there, then you're probably maybe a little overly confident, or maybe you're just doing something really small that's not really challenging you. So fear, number one, is a really good thing. It's good that it's there. Fear motivates us to do the right things and to be diligent about what we're doing, and to focus on the things that are really going to get us results. So I want to talk about a couple of the things that we advise clients to think about and do and really change the way that they think in order to be successful and to get past that fear of starting a business. And the first thing that I would say, and this is really important, is you have to change the way you think about it. And what I mean by that is right now, I know that you're thinking this. I know you're thinking, well, what if nobody buys? What if I don't make any money? What if this whole thing doesn't work? What if it's a bad idea? What if somebody steals the idea? There's all these things that run through your head that you're worried about when you're starting your business. And you have to take those things and you have to sort of flip them around. Right, so I remember a moment when I had an epiphany as I was still working at the time, and I was working on my businesses kind of on the side, but not really, right? Because once you have a successful business, you realize that the things that you maybe were working on initially probably weren't the right things to be working on. But I was researching, I was learning, I was studying, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, and the thing that kept running through my head is, how am I going to make this transition? How am I going to do it? Because I've got this job that takes up, by the time you commute and with overtime, at least 50 hours a week, right? And I've got these bills that are being paid by the job. I have other responsibilities and other obligations. I've got to keep the house up. You got to keep the grass mowed. You got to keep the pets fed. Many of you have kids that you have to take care of. You have other organizational activities that you're involved with. You've got all these things that you do in your spare time, your not working time, and you've got your job, so you don't have a lot of time left over. And time is another issue that we're going to talk about. But what happens is we get into this kind of area where we're thinking, okay, I have a small amount of time, and I don't have like 6 months to just spend building this business full time because I need this money, right? And again, in one of the next videos, we're going to talk about time. So if that's on your mind, make a note, because we're going to come back to that and talk a lot more about time. But you've got this situation where you know that you need to spend time building the business. You know you don't have a lot of time, but you need the money from the job, so you can't quit the job until you got a business up. You don't really have the time to spend on it full time. So you got all these things going on in your head, and you just kind of get in this like traffic jam. It just feels like a traffic jam. And I remember when all of those thoughts were going through my head. I remember one night I was laying in bed and I had been reading a book. I don't have any idea what book it was. It has nothing to do with the story that I'm telling. But I was reading this book, and what happened was, as I put the book down, I was kind of frustrated, and I was kind of like, I just don't know how I'm ever going to make this work. Well, the epiphany that I had was, you know, just because I don't know right now how I'm going to make it work doesn't mean I can't figure it out. And what I said to myself was, okay, I got to get really creative. I got to get really creative in figuring out how I'm going to make this work. And I got to try different things. I got to do different things. And when you shift your mentality to being about, okay, I know what's important, right? If you have kids, you know that you're not going to let them starve. That's right there in the front of your mind. You're not going to forget about that. You're not going to neglect that. All the things, all the core things that are important. We hear from folks who maybe have a spouse with a medical condition and have to maintain insurance coverage or enough money to pay for insurance coverage. Everybody has those core things that are important to them. And when we talk about fear, what it really comes down to is what are those core things? What are those core things that you're really worried about? Those are what ignite our fear, because those are the important things to us. Those are the things that we don't want to make sacrifices involving. Business involves a lot of sacrifice, but you can have those core things that you don't make sacrifices with, right? So when you think about what those core things are, put those core things in your head, because when you identify those core things, then you're able to see, okay, the rest of these things are actually more ancillary, right? There are things where I can make sacrifices or I can make trade-offs. Maybe that's a hobby. Maybe that's time with your friends, whatever that is. But identify those core things. Write down 3 or so of the core things that you don't want to make sacrifices around. And then what happens is those are sort of the big rocks in the stream that you then navigate around, right? So write those things down. Take some time and just jot those things down on a piece of paper so that you know what they are. Maybe it is your family, or maybe it is some aspect of your personal finance. Maybe it's some aspect of your health. Write down those non-negotiable things, those things that you're not willing to trade off for your business. Write those down and get really clear with them, because then as we move forward, we can structure and work around those things and ensure that those things are always supported, because probably one of your big motivations for wanting to start a business has something to do with those things, right? If it's your kids and wanting to care for them, maybe you want to start a business so that you can have the freedom and the flexibility to spend more time with them, or the freedom to spend time with them in ways that you want to, not just when you're off work, right? So get really clear on what those things are, and write those things down. And now let's talk about how do we navigate around without having to be so fearful and always have to worry about what if this doesn't work, what if that doesn't work. Now that you've got those things understood, we know where we can go. Now the next change that you have to make, and this is the change that I made when I was reading that book at night, is it wasn't anything that I did differently, or it wasn't something that I bought or something that fell on top of me. It was something that I changed in how I think. And what I changed was I decided that I was going to figure it out. Right? I'm going to figure out how to make this work. Now I've had folks say to me, Jeff, I don't believe in how to quit working because I don't see a specific pattern or formula. I don't see that you're showing me a specific pattern or a specific way to do this. Well, that's because There is none. And anybody who is out there selling you a specific pattern or a blueprint to quit your job or to start a business, they're selling you air. They're selling you something that does not exist. It might be good information, it might be good stuff, but it's not a pattern or a blueprint. There isn't any, because everybody has these different big rocks in the stream that you've got to navigate around. Once you've identified those, then you can start to get really creative, because once you identify what those big immovable rocks are, then you can move everything else. That's the important part of this, right? It's okay to put those big rocks in the stream that you're not going to move, but you got to be willing to move everything else, right? You got to be willing to move this out of the way, move that out of the way, so that you can navigate your way down the stream. The point is, you have to change the way you think about it from, oh my God, this isn't going to work, to, okay, I got to figure out how to make this work. And how to make it work in a way that doesn't compromise these big things that are really important to me. Now that you've identified those things, you can get more creative. And let me give you some ideas of how you might get creative, right? We talk about the fear of what if it doesn't work. Well, now what we can do is, now that we know what we're willing to move and what we're not willing to move, we're able to go out and have more interesting conversations, right? So if you have a business that you're starting, and say maybe that's around, I don't know, let's make something up, maybe that's around video production. And I say that because I'm making a video right now, so it makes sense to me right now. So now that you have those immovable things identified, now you can say, okay, now I need to know what my market might be interested in. So now what I can do is I can say, okay, how about that bowling league on Thursday night? That's something that is not one of my big immovable rocks. So let me move that out of the way. Let me skip that and let me go to a meetup for small businesses and see if I can learn more about their needs in the video production arena. Maybe you're working on something that involves parenting, or helping people to be better parents, or teaching people how to parent better. Well, then maybe you can move an activity out of the way. Maybe you can move your Tuesday night bunco game out of the way and go to a meetup about parenting and begin having a dialogue with people who might be interested in that information that you have. And these things that you're doing, they may not work. You may not get any information from these specific things that you're doing and these specific steps that you're taking to start your business. But that's okay, because, right, remember, you decided that you're going to figure it out, right? You're going to stop being scared, and you're going to put these really important things in the water and affix them. And be clear about the fact that they can't be moved, they can't be sacrificed. Your family can't be sacrificed. Your finances can't be sacrificed. Your elderly parents can't be sacrificed. Whatever these things are that are important to you, you've got them pinned down. So now you're free to move about around those things and figure out what your path is. Let me say that again. Figure out what your path is. You don't know what your path is. You don't know what your path is, but you do know that you have to figure it out. And when you've gotten really clear about what's movable and what's not, it opens up the path. And by the way, the path won't be like this. It'll be like this. That's why I keep doing this gesture. It'll move, and it'll wind, and it'll twist, and you'll hit some dead ends, and you'll back up, and you'll go back down. But the bottom line is, the only way that I know to get around the fear is to get really clear on what's not movable, what's not negotiable, and then get really creative about finding your path around that thing. So from this exercise, I want you to do a couple of things. The first thing I want you to do is write down those things that are not negotiable. What are the things that you're not willing to give up for your business? And then let's get really clear on what those things are, so that you know that those are the things that you just have to work around. And then the next thing is start figuring out, what are the things that you can move out of the way? What are the things that you can move, that you can change, that you can do differently, that you can give up? Business involves sacrifice. I'm not going to be the guy that sits here and lies to you and tells you that it's all about creating something that you can do only in 4 hours a week. But you've got to be able to take everything else and be really flexible with it and change your mindset from being about, what if this doesn't work? Oh my God, it's not going to work, and this and that, to being about, I'm going to figure out how to make this work. I hope that was helpful. Leave a comment below the video. Let us know, what are the things that you're not willing to make sacrifices in, those rocks, those big rocks that are not movable, and then also let us know what you're going to do to change your mind around that fear and get it to figuring out how to make it work and being totally okay with going this way and that way and moving around and being creative about figuring out how to actually make it work. Leave a comment below. Tell us what you think, and I will be back in a couple of days with another video.